Hi there everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another episode of Should You Pull for Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia. Now as you can see, I finally had time and money to go and get my hair cut, recoloured and all that good stuff, so I'm finally presenting a slightly better look than I have been over the past few weeks, I'm sure you'll all agree. But today we're going to be talking about Squall EX, Layle EX and Yuri as a new banner that, well, I could say comes as a surprise with the Abyss beta campaign, but honestly a lot of us saw it coming because we knew that Squall was going to get a rework pretty soon. So if you guys want to find out a little bit more about Squall EX, a little bit more about Layle EX, or maybe even a bit about Yuri that you weren't previously aware of, then stay tuned and keep on watching. As always, don't forget to check out all of the links in the description box below for all of my social media accounts. That's Facebook, Twitter, Discord, Twitch, Patreon, all that good stuff. And don't forget to check out Twitch in particular because I now have a regular streaming schedule which you can see on the right hand side here. So if you want to come and watch me play Opera Omnia, Final Fantasy 9 or anything else that I'm planning at that moment in time, then definitely check that link out. Then there's also DissidiaDB.com as well, we can't forget them as it's my primary resource for all of my videos. So do be sure to go and support DissidiaDB.com as well. And of course there's also lots of other Opera Omnia content creators out there, so definitely go and check those out as well. And if there's any that I've missed on the list, then definitely leave a comment in the comments section below. So while it's nice that we get 2 EXs on this banner, there's usually at least one dud on the banner, and unfortunately this time it's Yuri. Yuri doesn't come with an EX, he doesn't come with a rework or anything like that, but what he's basically there to do is to help certain aspects of the Abyss beta campaign, because what that campaign setting is that it asks you to use lots of different colour characters, lots of different weapon types and characters with a primary focus on swords, great swords and throwing weapons. And Yuri is a white crystal sword user. But what he does have is a nice AoE attack in crystal power, but you obviously want to get his weapon passives to begin with so that you can make sure you get all of your max brave buffs, attack buffs, everything like that. And then you also get, you have to activate his Chilinka's prayer ability by using Rela Crystal first. But once you've got that, his attacks actually aren't that bad. He isn't amazing by any stretch of the word, but he's a character that you can use for this event. So if you are going for Squall or Layle EX and you happen to get Yuri stuff, he's kinda handy to have. His Brave Overflow is actually really large on his crystal power, and he gets an AoE Brave HP attack. So it's good for trash clearing, it's good for getting through waves quickly, and then, you know, Rela Crystal, it kind of just makes it so that he gets a lot of extra stuff off of that. I mean, I'm actually looking at the Japanese version of the ability there, so that's not necessarily true. It said that it is over 180% there. It's actually 150. I do apologise for that because he actually gets another rework later on down the line. So if you do get Yuri's weapons, he is actually not terrible now. He's not great. But when he comes back with his EX+, he is actually very strong. So if you get hold of his weapons, I wouldn't necessarily sell them straight away because you might want them later. But as of right now, Yuri is nothing special. He's just got a nice Brave HP attack in Crystal Power, and then he has another Brave HP attack that makes it so that he can use his attacks freely without taking HP damage whenever he uses them. So he's a bit on the slow side. He's not a character that you're actively pulling for in this particular banner. So the second character I'm going to talk about here is going to be Layle, and that's because he doesn't actually have a rework on any of his abilities. He gets that later on, but he gets an EX weapon this time around, which is actually very nice for him. Layle's role in your party is to do one thing and do it well, which is launch your opponent's character, launch your enemies. And the way that he does that is he has Field Burst, which is if you have his 55 CP passive and his 15 CP weapon, an AoE Brave attack that inflicts Force, which is a framed debuff, which makes it so that it takes half as much chase HP damage, which is a hidden value that you deal by doing Brave and HP attacks, which is how you get to being able to launch your opponents through chases. And then what Force does is it halves the amount of HP needed in order to get to that point. And then Energy Gain, which has a larger, it's a Brave HP attack, which is always nice, that also has a large Chase HP damage that it deals, so it makes it even easier to you to get to that point. And then if you have his 60 passive and his 55 passive, he becomes like a Brave battery while he's at it. And then Energy Gain not only launches your opponent more easily, but it also has a delay effect on it, which makes it so that if he does launch somebody, you're more likely to get your whole party in on the attack, which is great. And if not, it's still a delay, which is always nice. And then, as I say, if you have his 35 CP passive, it makes the chase HP damage even higher, and it also turns him into a brave battery as well, so that all of your other characters are getting more bravery to sink into that chase sequence. But in all honesty, we've all seen Layle a lot before, and the only thing that's new to him is his EX weapon. So let's have a quick look at that. So Layle's EX weapon is actually quite nice to have. It's called Guy Bolg, and he does a 4-hit AoE magic brave attack and HP attack, a single target HP attack, that will initiate a chase sequence guaranteed, as long as it's, it will just make sure that you'll always get it, and it does the maximum amount of chase HP damage to any enemies that isn't launched immediately, so you'll be able to launch those straight away afterwards. And then he does more damage to enemies that are afflicted with force. It has a brave overflow, but it also grants Clavat Heart, which is a framed buff to your entire party, which raises all of your party's attack, max bravery, and the chase HP damage that they deal, which is actually very nice. Now, chase sequences were a big part of the game before EX weapons started to turn up, and Layle, does them better than any other character in the game. Cloud can also do them very well, but not nearly with as much frequency as Layle can, because as you'll see, his recast rate on his Gabolg is slightly fast, which means that when you've limit broken it, it's every other turn, like every 2 to 3 turns, which is really powerful, as we've seen with characters like Quistis before. He also gets a much needed HP attack plus off of his EX weapon as well, which is quite a simple HP attack plus. It just raises his bravery and then he does an HP attack, but it means he's not having to use skills every turn, and he always has this active as part of his kit just by having his EX weapon limit broken, and Kuja did this very well as well, so it's a nice little thing to have. But in this day and age, I don't think that Layle's launches are as necessary as they once were, because we have characters like Quistis and Vayne now who do that job very well by themselves. You also have Cloud, who doesn't launch as well as Layle does, but he has a lot of other tricks that he does as well. So if you get Layle EX really easily, I'd be really happy about it. I would quite like to get Layle's EX, but I don't know if he's necessary. The way that the campaign works, the Abyss beta campaign, it kind of gates you into using Layle, because it asks to use yellow characters and characters with throwing weapons, and there aren't many characters with throwing weapons that are particularly useful. In fact, I think there's pretty much just Layle and Setzer. And then we obviously, with limited time rewards and stuff like that, you're like, oh god, I need to get Layle. But you're only going to miss, if you don't get Layle EX and you can't finish it because of it, and to be honest, you should still be able to finish it with a 35 CP Layle or a 35 CP Setzer, you shouldn't panic too much, because you're not missing out on a huge amount, and you can save your gems for somebody later, and Layle comes back multiple times, so there is no reason to necessarily pull on him right now, given the number of characters we've just had. That's probably sapped up quite a lot of people's resources. I know it's done a number on mine. Now, Squall got a massive overhaul this time around with a re-release of his EX weapon, which is interesting because it actually makes it so that his EX weapon ability is the worst ability in his kit, which is really odd and quite interesting. But it happens to a fair few reworked characters that got their EX weapon quite early, like Cloud. Meteor Rain is probably the worst ability he has at this point, and the same can be said for Squall. But if we look at the rework that he got, you can see that he got a lot of text added to his Solid Barrel and Renzakuken, and what's happened is Solid Barrel has now become the more important ability for him to use, because when you use Solid Barrel, whether it's plus or not, it makes it so that he gets a framed buff called Solitary Lion, and what that does is it makes it so that his abilities have their plus versions regardless of what his initial bravery is. So before now, his initial bravery, if it was above a certain threshold, he'd get rubbish versions of his skills, and what he'd want to do is dump all of his bravery into something, make it so that you had no bravery afterwards and you just keep doing it. But obviously what that meant is if you use any support character that was a brave battery, which most support characters are these days, at least certainly ones not named Selfie, you just end up with a really subpar character. So what they've done is they've fixed this by giving him the Solitary Lion framed buff. And it also makes it so he gets a little bit more bravery, a little bit more attack, and he gets a brave attack plus, he gets an HP attack plus, which is nice for him to have because he also went through his skill uses like water, and you'd end up with a dead character really quickly. This hasn't been solved entirely because his brave attack plus and his HP attack plus are only really good against like trash waves and stuff, because it's all group damage, which is great, but not so much against bosses who have higher defenses and who like you need a lot more of a brave dump into. But he is very good at taking out trash waves. He's now like one of the top players for AoE damage. So if you want somebody who's really good for farming, or you want somebody that's got a friend unit that can just quickly go into the first few waves of a battle, he is going to be really useful for that. And he also, I would say, to go back to the abilities that he has as well, Solid Barrel doesn't need to be its plus version in order to get an HP attack off anymore, because it will get one conditionally if you're over 80% bravery, which is good, because if he's under his initial bravery, then you should always have Solid Barrel plus anyway, and if he's over it, you'll get Solitary Lion, and you'll still get an HP attack out at the end of it anyway. And then the plus version obviously does more damage, it can overflow 150% max bravery, and it does an HP attack regardless of what your bravery is at the end of it. But that only does it to one target. It does the bravery damage to all targets, and then it does an HP attack to singular target. Whereas Renzakuken now, if you're using regular Renzakuken, it does 100% HP damage to the target and 50% splash damage to other targets. But if you're using Renzakuken Plus, it does 100% across the board. So what he's done, what Squall has done basically, is what Lan and Rain were doing without the elemental factor brought into it, and with a bit more consistency. The only issue is that he's going to run out of his skill uses quite quickly against bosses, because you're not going to use his Brave Attack and HP Attack Plus all that often, because they're just not as strong as you'd like them to be. But he gets a little bit of a Brave boost as well from his levels 58 passive, which is nice. But Max Bravery is now like his biggest issue, because he needs a lot of it in order to capitalise on how hard he hits, because he hits extremely hard, because the potencies of both of his abilities were increased exponentially. But he's obviously going to be leaking a lot of bravery if he's not. If you're using Renzakuken, you have no Brave Overflow. If you're using Assault Trigger, which I'll get to in a moment, he has no Brave Overflow. It's only Solid Barrel that gets it, so you have to be really careful managing the bravery in order to use Squall effectively. As I said, Squall's EX weapon is a really nice thing to have, because it does extend his longevity by giving him an extra attack that he can use, quite simply. And he does get a framed buff out of it in Lionheart, or Lionheart 2 if you've max limit broken it. And it gives him a bit more bravery, gives him a bit more attack. Not that he needs more attack, but obviously all bonuses are good bonuses. And he just does an 8-hit melee Brave HP attack to one target, which is pretty much all you're getting out of it. It's got a normal recast rate after you've max limit broken it, so you're talking every 3 to 4 turns, that kind of rate. And it's nice to have, because it means you're not wasting like skill uses if you don't have to. But ultimately, its potency is much lower than that of either Solid Barrel or Renzakuken, so it's a bit strange to see that his EX weapon does significantly less damage than his other skills. And then going quickly into the EX Plus era for both Squall and Layle. Squall's is pretty good. It means that his Assault Trigger actually keeps up with the other kind of EX weapons that are out there. He gets a stronger version of Lionheart. He does like double Brave HP hits when he uses Assault Trigger, which is nice. It means he can dump his bravery that he's already got and then do another attack after it. So it does quite a large number of hits. It's just a stronger attack basically, and he can extend his current buffs by a couple of turns. He doesn't get anything huge, he just does more damage, and that's all you really want him to do. And then Layle gets an extra Brave Attack plus plus and an HP Attack plus plus, which are just slightly stronger versions of themselves, which is nice. He doesn't actually get all that much out of EX Plus compared to a lot of characters. Obviously, if you have it, you're going to want to do it. But EX Plus based resources, as we'll discover when we go into that era, are quite limited. So if it were me talking personally, Layle isn't the first character that I would go to when it came to an EX Plus. There are other characters that I would much rather awaken their EX before his. But if you get it easy, all buffs are good buffs, and like I said, Layle's EX weapon is really good. Squall's EX weapon and his rework are pretty good, but I personally don't find them necessary to clear a lot of content. And the only thing that annoys me about the Abyss Beta campaign, despite the fact that I think it's a great idea, is how it's cheekily tried to gate you into pulling for Squall and Layle, thinking that you need them, and you really don't. Once again, a massive shout out to Ingwelder and the Tonbridge Troop, who has provided us with 2 lovely little infographics here, one for each of the characters. Layle, as it says here, he's the launch king. He is stronger at launching than literally anybody else in the game, and he does just launch, and you'll get to your summons ridiculously quickly if you use him. But he doesn't have the massive power to deal with a lot of things, and he is, as it says on the infographic here, a little bit awkward to deal with trash waves or getting to a boss, because He has a group brave attack and a single target HP attack, and you don't really want to be using his launch attacks on trash mobs. So try and make sure you bring at least one AoE damage dealer with you if you're going to use Layle. And then, as it says here, the most likely banners that you're going to want to wait for Layle to come back again are going to be Sephiroth's banner when it is EX+. Layle doesn't get his EX+ with this banner, but Aiko and Sephiroth do, and Layle's banner, Layle does get his EX on it, which at least if you get it, you'll have it for later. And then it also comes back with Kieran's event, which will give him his EX+ as well as Kieran's himself. So maybe if you're pulling on this banner now, then great. If you don't want to pull on this banner and you still want Layle, there are other opportunities for you to get him. And then Squall, he's like really strong at just dealing, he's the total opposite to Layle, to be honest. He's really strong at dealing AoE damage, dealing with the trash waves, getting to the boss as soon as possible. But he doesn't really carry the power necessary to deal with Cosmos level bosses. He's just not got the longevity to last. As I've said, and as the infographic says, his EX is actually his weakest move. It doesn't deal as much damage as Solid Barrel or Renzokuken, which is a little bit of a letdown. But it does mean that he is viable without his EX weapon, which is always nice. It means he's at least usable without it. I still value having the EX weapon because it means he has a lot longer longevity. It means that he's going to be able to keep up with like some bosses, at least, if you really want to use Squall. But the main reason that I wouldn't pull for Squall, even though I stupidly did the first time he came around, and he's one of my unluckiest EXs to date, he comes back with Ultimecia's banner, and he'll get his EX+ then. So getting Ultimecia is paramount to a lot of players, myself included. So if you wait, you may get Squall EX then, and as I said, the game likes to make you think that these characters are necessary for the Abyss banner, but they aren't. You have other options. If you want yellow characters, you have others. You have like Quistis and people like that. If you want black characters, then you have Zack, who is a black swords user, so then you can use him. There's loads of options available to you. If you want a black crystal throwing weapon character, you have Setzer as well. So don't allow the banner or the campaign to fool you into thinking you have to pull on this banner, because while I think these characters are nice, I don't think that they're ultimately mandatory for anybody. So to finish up the video, do I think the Squall and Layle's banner is worth pulling on? Should you pull on this banner? Personally, I would say no. The reason for that is because we've just had some extraordinary characters come out in Zack, Serah and Vayne, and these two just aren't quite up to par with those characters. They're good. They are very good. Like, you know, personally, if you get them easily, then congratulations. I think that would be great for you. Layle is really good for a single purpose. If you want a single target and you take, say, Layle, Quistis, Vayne, then that boss is just not getting a turn. You know, it's just not going to happen against a single target. There are reasons to pull for Layle. I think he's really good. But Squall, I think, is a little bit underwhelming, even though he's had his rework. Not because he's bad. He's a great AoE damage dealer. But we have other great AoE damage dealers. I mentioned Lan and Rain earlier, who is probably the weaker option out of the other options you have. You now have Golbez, you've now got Renoa. There are characters that can do what Squall does just as well, if not better than he can. But as I said, I already have Squall EX, so I'm going to make use of him because I pulled for the damn thing the first time around, so I'm going to use him. But that doesn't mean that I think that this banner is something that you should go out of your way to get. If you're a fan of Squall, he is good. He's not top, like, absolute busted top Vayne tier, but he is good. And we are going to start seeing level 70 awakenings coming very soon, so do hold out for those as well. And then Layle, again, he's very, very good at one thing. If you have Cloud EX, there is no reason for you to pull for Layle at all, if you ask me, because he does a similar thing, maybe not as frequently, but he has other aspects that he can do as well. Whereas Layle is a bit clunky for today's meta. Like, don't get me wrong, having a launch every other turn guaranteed is great, and being able to battery while you delay your opponent and all that. But a lot of us pulled for Quistis when she came out, and she kind of does that job already. And then Vayne came out, and then he does that job really well while he does ridiculous amounts of damage. There are just other alternatives. I certainly don't think this is a bad banner. I just don't think it's as great as some of the ones we've had previously. So ultimately, no, I don't think that you should pull on this banner. But feel free to let me know in the comments below if you feel differently, if you think that this banner is amazing, if you think that I'm wrong, then absolutely sound off in the comments below and let me know what you think. If you think that Squall or Layle are better alternatives than the alternatives I've given today. If you're really struggling with the Abyss banner, let me know in the comments below, or let everyone else know in the comments below what teams you've used to tackle the event where you haven't had to pull for these characters, because that I'm sure is going to be really useful information for everybody as well. I'm personally using Vayne, Setzer, and Zack quite a lot within that event, and Quistis as well. So like, those are characters that you might want to consider. But anyways, thank you very much for watching the video. I hope that it's helped you all in making a decision on whether to put on this banner or not. Don't forget to check out all of the links in the social media, in the description box for my social media. I'll get the words out in a moment. And obviously don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell for notifications on any new videos I have coming out. So thank you very much again for watching, and I'll speak to you all soon. Bye!